Hello, my name is Nathan, you're watching Nice at Dice, and today I'm talking about this game, Hotshots. It's a cooperative board game for 1 to 4 players about trying to contain and put out wildfires. I'm going to show you how the game works and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. So this is a game of Hotshots set up for 2 players. Each player is going to have a cardboard standee representing their character, and you have a corresponding character card, which gives your character one special ability, and it gives a summary of how the dice mechanic in the game works. The object of the game is to move around the board, removing these fire tokens. If you remove all the fire tokens from the board, you win the game. You can lose the game if 8 of these spaces get scorched. What that means is each of these tiles has a number here on the right hand corner, and this is the maximum number of fire tokens that can be placed on this tile. So if this number of tokens is ever placed there, you're going to flip the token over to represent that it's been scorched, and if you ever have 8 tiles on the board scorched, or if your camp tile gets scorched, then you've lost the game. What you're going to do on your turn is move up to 2 spaces and then fight a fire, and finally draw a fire card. So moving 2 spaces is basically taking your standee and moving maybe 2 spaces like so. You can move into spaces that have fire, but you cannot move through a space with fire. So moving into this space means you'd have to stop here. So let's say that we did that. We moved to this space where we have fire, and then we can fight the fire. Fighting the fire involves rolling these 6 custom dice. And just to give you an idea, these dice have different symbols on each side. You have one symbol representing a firefighter, and the other sides are all different tools used to fight wildfires. So you're going to pick up all 6 dice and roll them together. And then what you're looking for is on the bottom of each tile is a row of symbols, and these are the symbols you need to effectively fight fire on this tile. So in this case, we're looking for some of these rake icons, a chainsaw, and a firefighter. So we have one firefighter that we rolled, and that's it. That's the only die that came up as a useful result. So now, since we set aside at least 1 die, we can pick up the rest and roll them again. And this time we rolled a chainsaw, so we can keep that one. And now we can choose to stop, or we can keep going, but we'll go ahead and keep going. We'll pick up these other 4 and we'll re-roll them. We got a rake, so we can take that and we can keep going. We'll go ahead and do that. We rolled another rake, and so we'll go ahead and stop there. So once you have 3 or more symbols that match the symbols on the tile, you can get some sort of reward for having rolled that. So with just 3 symbols, you can add one of these fire break tokens to the edge of the tile you're on. For example, maybe like this between these 2 tiles. Fire break tokens help restrict the spread of fire from one tile to another. Or in the case of having rolled 4 dice that match, you can actually remove a fire token from that tile. If you rolled 5, you could remove 2 fire tokens and then either add one of those break tokens, or you could draw a bonus token, which give you random bonuses. And if you rolled 6 of the required dice, you can remove up to 3 flames from the tile you're on, plus add a fire break token and gain a bonus token. Just to give you an idea of some of the bonus tokens, each one of them is unique and they do a variety of things. For example, this one can count as either a fireman or a hose when you're rolling the dice. This one lets you add a fire break token to the tile that you're on, and so forth. So they all do different things. And you can use them pretty much any time during your turn that they would be useful. Now, after you've moved and you've fought fire, there's a few things you should know about fighting fire. let's say, for example, you got even 4 dice that you needed, and you decided to go ahead and roll the other 2, and they did not produce anything useful, like in this case. This is what you would call a blow up. So when you blow up on your roll, you ignore all of the results that you got, even the good ones, and you add another fire token to the tile that you're on. So there's a push your luck element to the game. Getting more dice that match will get you better results, but obviously the fewer dice you're rolling, the better the odds that you will not get anything useful and therefore blow up. There are some ways you can mitigate that. For example, if you have 2 players both on the same tile making their rolls, then they can ignore 1 blow up. If you are anywhere adjacent to the lake tile, you can ignore 1 blow up. And there's one of the bonus tokens that lets you ignore a blow up. Each of these tiles has different things on them that affect the way the game works. For example, the propane tank here, if it gets scorched, you add 1 flame to each adjacent tile, so you want to avoid that, and so forth. After you've moved, fought fire, the last thing you do on your turn is draw one of these fire cards. The fire cards control how the fire spreads across the board, and I'll show you a few examples of what they might do. So this one causes you to add 1 flame to 2 different tiles. One of those tiles needs to be one that gets scorched with 2 flames, and the other needs to be one that gets scorched with 5 flames. So in this particular situation, we have no tiles with flames on them that will scorch at 2 flames. So we can ignore that first part of the card. But we have some tiles that can scorch with 5 flames. So we would look at our options and we would choose 1 tile that can scorch with 5 flames, and we would add a flame to that. And then we would discard that, and the next player would take their turn. Some other common cards that might come up is a card like this, which shows a depiction of a specific tile, in this case this one, and you add 1 flame to that specific tile. If that tile were already scorched, you would ignore that card and keep playing. Another card that you have is this one, which is the winds blow. Now on your camp tile, you also have this little marker that shows the direction of the wind. It starts blowing to the north, and so a card like this will have you add flame to the board based on the direction of the wind. So you can see, for example, you have fire here. If the wind's blowing north, you're going to add 1 there. You have fire here. Since the wind's blowing north, it's going to spread there, and so forth. And then finally, you have a card like this, which shows a change in the wind direction. So you're going to adjust this token here so that it's facing in the new direction, and then wind will blow in that direction, causing you to add more fire to the board in different places as a result. So again, that's basically what you're doing. You're moving around, you're fighting fire, you're drawing these cards to add fire to the board. The goal is to remove all the fire from the board, and you lose if 8 of these tiles end up scorched, or if your base tile ends up scorched. So that's basically how a game of Hotshots is played. As you can see, it's fairly simple, fairly straightforward. I think it's really appropriate for people of a lot of different ages and a lot of different amounts of experience. So I will say that positive thing about the game right away. Now, honestly, the very most exciting thing about the game for me is the theme. I really like the idea of this theme of fighting wildfires. I think it's a pretty unique concept for a game. There's games where you're fighting fires like in urban environments, but as far as fighting wildfires, I haven't seen that in any other game. And it's interesting because, just a little personal background here, why this is so interesting to me. When I was young, maybe like 10 or 11, I saw this documentary about fighting wildfires, and I thought it was so fascinating, all the different strategies and the different equipment that firefighters used to combat wildfires. And at the time, I was really interested in learning how to program and create computer games, and I started to create like a real-time strategy game where you were controlling a group of firefighters fighting wildfires. That never went very far, but then a few years ago, now I'm more into board games. I play around with designing some of my own board games, and I remembered that project way back then, and I thought, well, how could I develop a board game with that theme? And maybe about 6 months later, I saw a review for Hotshots. So somebody else beat me to it, but I don't mind that at all because I enjoy the game that was created, and it's neat to have a game on that theme that has intrigued me for so long. Now, one of the things that I will also say about the game that I really enjoy is the variability of it. Just for example, with the tiles that you use to make up the board, every one of these tiles is unique. They all have unique artwork. They all have a unique line of icons here that you're looking to roll on the dice. And then most of them are also unique in other ways, having some kind of special ability connected to the tile, or just some other combination of maybe like a very low threshold for getting scorched, or something to that effect that makes the tile feel very different from all the other tiles. So I would say at least half of the tiles, if not more, have something about them that makes them feel really different from the rest of the tiles. So that's really interesting. I like how you have these bonus tokens that give you special abilities, and every bonus token in the game is unique. Now, while that is, I think, a good thing because it creates more variable experience and play, it also is probably one of the negative things that I would say about the game. And I don't have very much bad to say about the game, but I will say that it's a little bit tiresome that each one of these is unique. Each one of them just has a symbol on it, and some of the symbols you can tell right away what it does, but you have a symbol like, for example, this. It apparently is unlocking something, and if you look really closely, the something underneath it is a sort of depiction of a die. But again, unless you're like really familiar with the game, at first glance you're going to have no idea what this does. Now, I will say that the rulebook is very well put together, and it's very easy to reference in the rulebook what everything in the game is and what it does. So that is not a huge problem. It won't slow you down too much. But I will just say that as you're learning the game, and even after you have some experience with the game, you're still going to have that little hiccup that you're going to draw a token and be like, what in the world does this do? And you'll have to look it up. So just be aware of that. If that sounds really tedious to you, then that might be one thing detracting from this game. Other thing that I like about the game is just kind of the overall simplicity of it, but how it manages to maintain that tension. Everybody's working together. Your goals are pretty straightforward, but you have that central mechanism of rolling the dice, and you want to get as many dice as you can that have the symbols you want. So even if you're down to just, if you've got 4 already, and you feel like, oh, I want to push my luck for those last 2 that'll match, but then obviously when you're just rolling 2 dice, very low odds you're going to get any symbol that is useful to you, and you're going to bust or blow up, as the game calls it. So it's kind of a nice tension there of like wanting to push your luck, but wanting to be cautious. And it's not completely luck-based because there are ways to mitigate that with protecting yourself by working around the lake, protecting yourself by having multiple players on the same tile working together, things like that. So it's not too random, but there is that push your luck element to it, which is pretty exciting. The last thing I'll say about the game is that while I feel like it has a pretty good challenge to it, it's approachable enough that I think most people can understand the game, understand how to play it, and be able to beat it after a few tries. It is at a good level where you probably won't beat it on your first try, and even after you have some experience with the game, you'll still have some losses here and there. But then it also has a lot of ways, very modular ways, to modify the difficulty to either make it easier or more challenging. So on the back of the rulebook, you have this whole section right here which lists modular ways to make the game easier, and then you have modular ways to make the game more difficult. So it's very adjustable in that way. If you find that it's too challenging for your particular group, you can make it easier. If you find that it's too easy, or perhaps you started out with it being somewhat, you made it easier to start with, but now you have some experience, you've kind of ramped up your skill, then you can go back to the standard difficulty or even make it more difficult. And you can even mix and match. You may find that I don't like the difficulty of one particular aspect of the game, so you can sort of dial back the difficulty there, but you can say I at the same time ramp up the difficulty somewhere else to kind of maintain a sort of status quo while still sort of customizing the experience to your personal taste. I don't see that in a lot of games, and I think that's really cool, so I really appreciate that they did that with Hotshots. Anyhow, overall, those are my thoughts on Hotshots. I really enjoy the game. It's a fun cooperative game, very approachable for people of lots of different skill levels, and I really love the theme. So my name is Nathan. You've been watching Nice at Dice. Thank you so much for watching, and you enjoy the rest of your day.